realized that power had gone forth from him and someone had been healed. But he was not sure who it was, and he called out, "Who touched me?" The disciples were stunned. Jesus is in a big crowd. What a stupid question, they may have thought. You see the crowd pressing in on you, how can you say, "Who touched you?" But it's a different kind of touch that Jesus is talking about. Jesus wouldn't accept their answer. He wanted to know a name, to see a face. And so as he looks around, as he stops this crowd in its tracks, the woman, perhaps feeling both joy and fear and trembling, comes to Jesus and acknowledges her situation. She's no longer standing in the sidelines, in the shadows. She's there, face to face. By his actions, Jesus tells us many things about faith and healing. First and foremost, God has time for everyone. There is no event so important that it has to be rushed to and to stop and not attend to this woman's need. And that Jesus makes no distinction between the poor and the marginalized or the rich and the powerful. He doesn't just talk about the poor, the weak, and the needy. He talks to them. By drawing the woman from the crowd, Jesus also helped her understand that her healing was not a mishmash of magical superstition and charms, but of faith. By calling the woman from the crowd, Jesus also healed her from the lonely, isolated existence of her past. Because of her condition, according to the laws of the book of Leviticus, she was considered unclean. In a society that considered hospitality a high virtue, hospitality to the sick and the diseased was something somewhat unknown. They tended to be ostracized, abandoned, put outside the bounds of community and neighborhood, excluded from social life, separated from family and friends. It was a very lonely existence. One can imagine that there was no one there for this woman to hold her hand when she cried or to give her a soft touch on the shoulder to remind her that she was not alone. By bringing her before the crowd, Jesus not only told her, but also announced to all her friends and family and all the people in the community that she was healed. He listened to her with compassion and said, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace." He called her daughter, restoring a sense of relationship, showing a sense of compassion. When we hear that story, we wonder, about those cures. None of us would do any of those things for the kind of medical condition that this woman apparently suffered. For we have at our access better trained doctors, modern medical technology, I suspect better pharmaceuticals. We have the capacity, I guess, to take legal action if our doctors fail to exercise good judgment in our care. But sometimes sickness, loss, other circumstances of life lead to an incredible loneliness. And loneliness and isolation and depression and lack of hope can be as much a medical condition, kind of counteracting all of the efforts of modern medicine to heal. So that there is a healing place, even within our modern world, for a touch, a word, a listening ear, someone to be there to cross the boundary between us and them, to make the person who feels isolated once again part of the circle. We gathered yesterday morning with our current Stephen Ministry training group for last session together, a session appropriately entitled Follow Me. We reviewed all of the things that our Stephen ministers had learned over the 50 hours of their training about listening and caring, about being trustworthy, about holding confidence, about being there with a grace-based acceptance when people are hurting, and to know that we carry with us the presence of Christ. It isn't us, it isn't our individual capacities that make healing possible. It is that we bring the person, the healing touch of Christ, by prayer, by our Christian presence, by the ministries of the Christian community, and that those can be extraordinarily healing. So it doesn't take, a lot of resources. Sometimes it simply takes a willingness to accept a responsibility to make oneself available to someone else in a way that helps their wholeness and healing. But sometimes it takes money. We live in a world in which it makes a difference where you're born. We are, in our family, awaiting the birth of our second grandchild, hopefully sometime this week. The baby was due a week ago today. Our first grandchild was born by cesarean section. We're not sure whether that will be the circumstance of our granddaughter's birth or not, but we know that if that is the necessity, that a safe hospital, competent doctors and medical team will deliver the child and attend to all of that child's needs. But I have the opportunity, as some of you know, to be involved with the Bawa Health Initiative, which is doing work in a rural village in Cameroon in West Africa. There, if a woman required a cesarean section or had a complicated delivery, it is as likely that both the child and the mother would die because they don't have the kind of available health care that we so often take for granted. And in fact, the Bawa Health Initiative really got its start because co-founder Blaise Dangy, currently teaching out in Ellensburg, Washington, his mother died from postpartum hemorrhage when she was giving birth to his younger sister. Because there was no clinic in the village, no access to health care. And so he has a kind of lifetime commitment to making sure that at least a basic primary health system would be available for the mothers, the fathers, the children in the village in which he grew up. And so we've been doing some wonderful work, distributing bed nets to help reduce the likelihood that children will lose their precious son or daughter to malaria, a preventable disease which bed nets help and which simple medication can cure or can treat. All of these things, part of that sort of fair balance. How as Christians do we take in what Jesus taught us? How do we take that sense of Jesus' healing love for us and allow it to flow through us so that it is a healing love for others? And how do we take all of that and have a sense of the abundant joy that is possible in our lives for sharing the gifts we've received in ways that can help and heal and bring joy and wholeness to others? It's why we come to the table, to be fed, to receive the elements, to take in to our own being what it means to be the body of Christ, that we might take that out into the world. Thanks be to God. We have been blessed in many ways, and it is our privilege to share in the work of Christ Church as our morning offering is received.